Hello, this is the first video of week 4 for the microeconomic theory of the international trade department. Okay, so the place I recorded the lecture is now changed. It is my office because today I came to the university because I had two meetings with the other faculty members to determine several things. So now I just got out of my house, wearing some dresses, and washing my face, washing my tooth as well. So yeah, so um, this video will be also 30 minutes long because um, I usually save the videos on the YouTube, and the YouTube teaches me a lot about the information of the users, information of watchers, like you guys. And the statistics YouTube provided me shows that the average time of watching my video is less than 20 minutes, which means that if you start the video, then you want to stop within 20 minutes because you are bored. Usually my video is 30 minutes to 15 minutes long, but that means that I have not to expect that most of my students watch my video from the starting point to the end point. They usually stop the video in the middle of it. So I'm trying to shorten the video a little bit shorter um, by getting some help from the YouTube. Anyway, so let's start. Anyway, the video. So this is the second part of chapter 3. Um, Chapter 3 is all about the application of supply and demand curve, and it is really easy part because this part is also a part of the principles of microeconomics you studied last year or maybe 3 years ago. But anyway, so we can just do the same thing like some elasticities of supply and demand curve, but with more mathematical approach because it is more accurate, and by using these mathematical terms then you can apply your knowledge to more various types of problems so you can get the better solution strategy. So that's the reason why we study about this type of equations. Anyway, so last time we studied about the price elasticity of demand. The price elasticity of demand means that your quantity demanded have some certain level of sensitivity to the change of the price level of that good. But the important thing was that your sensitivity was estimated by the percent change of your quantity demanded relative to or respect to the percent change of the price. Okay, so the percent change term was really important in the definition of elasticity. So it's the same with the other types of elasticity. The first equation 7 gives us a definition of the income elasticity of demand or income elasticity of any type of quantity changes. Okay, so it is also expressed by one green letter. I think it is called a pi epsilon or something. I don't know. You can just Googling it. So this income elasticity is also the simple to define. If we define large Y is an income of U, so maybe labor income or capital income, any types of income. So your quantity supplied or your quantity demanded. So in this case, it is quantity demanded more specifically. Your quantity demanded will be changed if your income changes. So this income elasticity of demand is defined by the percent change of your quantity demanded over the percent change of your income changes. Okay, so you can just simply change price with the income, and it is definition of income elasticity of demand. So this is another example. It is still your demand function. Your demand function now consists of the 4 parts. The first one is constant number. The second term is the price of the good in this market. And the third term is the price of tomato, I think, because we are still living in the market for avocado. And the fourth term, now it is important. The first term is 0.01 times y, which means that your income will be affected on your quantity demanded. It is reasonable to think about it. If your income increases, then you want more avocado because you love avocado. Also, you demand for the other good as well as your income goes up. Excuse me. So now we can calculate the income elasticity of demand at a specific point of your demand curve. Do you remember that? Specific point of demand curve is really important in calculating any types of elasticity. Okay, so the question is that if the quantity demanded is 50 and your income is 4,000, then what is the income elasticity of demand? So by using our definition here, the far right term of equation 7, we should know the four terms: income, quantity demanded, and the change of quantity demanded, and the change of your income. We know only two things: income and the quantity, or Y or Q. The unknown variables now are delta Q over delta Y, or the change of quantity demanded over the change of your income. But we already know that. Which parameters give you the information? In equation number 8, I think the coefficient of Y is a slope of this demand function if we think about the Y is independent variable, which means that 0.01 is the slope of this demand function, which means that delta Q over delta Y is exactly that coefficient. So we know all unknown variable, and so simply you can just put those numbers in the definition of income elasticity of demand. So the answer is 0.8 in equation 9. You can practice by yourself. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, or if you cannot calculate by yourself, just email me, or you can just post your own question on our cyber campus. I can read it and I can reply your question, so everyone in our class can share your question. It is a good thing because you're going to be a positive externality in this case, right? Another types of elasticity is the cross price elasticity of demand, which means that your demand will be affected by the price of avocado in avocado market or your income, but also your demand for avocado will be affected by price of the other good, like the price of the complement or price of substitute can also be a factor that can possibly affect under your demand or quantity demanded. So in equation 10, the P0 or P0, whatever you can call it, is the price of the other good. It is not the price of avocado or price of the good in this market. Okay, so you can also think of possible change of price of the other good as a factor that can possibly affect your quantity demand changes. And the definition of elasticity is the same. It's the same across all types of elasticity, right? So you can just put different variable in the same form of definition. Then that's it. Okay. So in this definition, the cross price elasticity of demand, you should think about the two relationship of the good you demand in the market and the other good, and the characteristic of the other good can define the relationship between your avocado and the other good, right? So the first one is the substitute. Substitute means they are competing each other, right? So you can choose just one of them, like avocado and maybe tomato or maybe the apple. I don't know. it's just up to you. But for me, avocado and maybe a pork are substitute each other because a pork can give us pretty good fat, right? So the fat is really important. Nutrition we have to consume every day. And avocado can also give us really good fat. And the avocado gives us fat, which is a little bit different from the fat that the pork can provide us. But basically, they just give me a fat. So I can choose one of them. If I eat all of them together, the avocado and the pork, then I'm gonna be super fat, and that's not going to be happen in my life. So you can just define your own substitute, but the important thing is that you should choose just one of them. They are competing each other. The complement is if you consume both things together, then your life is getting better. Which means that like the pencil and eraser or the iPad and Apple Pencil, those types of things, you can consume both, then you're gonna get better and they are not competing each other at all, right? Apple Pencil and iPad are not competing each other, but iPad and Galaxy Tab are competing each other, so they are substitute. But Apple Pencil and iPad are complement each other because they are helping each other, right? By using the definition of cross price elasticity of demand, we can find out the relationship between those two goods, right? It is interesting. So the same demand curve, still, we are still living in the world of avocado. So now we are focused on the third term on the right hand side, 20 times PT, because the PT means the price for tomato, I think. So anyway, so there is a typo. What would be the income elasticity demand? No, what would be the cross price elasticity demand for avocado if the quantity equals 50 and the price of tomato is 0.80 cent? The answer, we already know the slope, which will be the 20. So delta Q over delta PT is 20, and we know the value of Q and the value of PT. So we know everything in the definition of cross price of elasticity. So you put those numbers to get the right answer. And the right answer in equation 12 is 0.32. It is positive number. That's important information. Which means that if the price of that good, the price of T increases, then your sensitivity of quantity demand is also increased. How much increases is not important in the in the defining of substitute or complement. But I think the PT is the price of fertilizer, right? So no, I think fertilizer increase. No, it is tomato, right? It's tomato. So since the price of tomato increases, which means that there is less demand for tomato, but more demand on the avocado. So your quantity demanded of avocado is also increases. So percent change of price of tomato increases, and the quantity percent change of quantity demanded is also increases. So the answer in the equation 12 is also positive because positive over positive is positive. So 0.32 is positive number, which means that tomato and the avocado are substitute each other. But if the answer has a negative sign, which means that they complement each other, because the price of maybe fertilizer and the avocado, you can think about it. If the price of fertilizer increases, then there will be more kinds of cost in producing the avocado. I think the fertilizer is not a good example. Let's think about it. What is the complement of avocado? Maybe a burger, because have you ever ate a burger with avocado? That's awesome. That's pretty good. If you go to Seoul, then you should definitely go to some places that the burger is super nice. I cannot remember the name of the store, but I can give you the names of the store. Oh, the Brooklyn the Bowl joint in the Shinsa area. They sell, I think they sell avocado burger, and you should definitely try it. So, in my opinion, the burger and the avocado are complement each other. Let's assume that the price of burger increases, which means the less demand for burger. And since the burger and the avocado are complement each other, the demand for avocado is also decreases. So the percent change of price of burger is increases, but the quantity demanded of avocado is decreases. So they move differently. So signs will be negative, right? So if the cross price elasticity of demand is negative, then those two goods are complement each other. But if the answer, the cross price elasticity of demand is the positive, then those two goods are substitute each other, competing each other. Okay, remember that because it will be happening. It will be appeared in your midterm for sure. I promise you. The last one, price elasticity of supply. It is defined by eta, another green letter. So the same, but now it's different. It is not the quantity demanded, it is quantity supplied. So percent change of quantity supplied over percent change of price is definition of the price elasticity of supply. Okay, nothing special, just easy. So this is now, finally we have a new supply curve here, equation 14. Quantity supplied is defined by G plus H times P. And H is the slope of this supply curve, which means that H is defined by change of quantity supplied over change of the price level. So we can simply change the definition of price elasticity of demand from equation 13 to equation 16. The eta, or the price elasticity of supply, is defined by the H, the slope of supply curve, times specific level of price over specific level of quantity. So also in supply curves, the price elasticity of supply is changing over the point of any point over the supply curve. Okay, so there are numerous value of price elasticity of supply. So this is example. So the linear supply curve is now given by equation 17. And the question is giving you the specific number of price, $7.20, and the specific number of quantity, it is 12 units. Then we can calculate the price elasticity of supply, because we already know delta Q over delta P, which will be equal to a quarter, 0.25, right? So you can put those numbers to cancel out delta Q over delta P, and we know P over Q as well. So you put those numbers and calculate it, then you can get the answer, 0.15. So my question is, in this point, this supply is elastic or inelastic? You have your answer. It is inelastic because the absolute value of elasticity is less than 1. So we can guess this is really inelastic. It is insensitive supply curve at this point only. So the same like a demand curve, your eta, or your elasticity of supply, can be varied over any point of supply curve. So be careful on the calculating elasticity on the different points of supply curves, because it can be different. So at some point it could be elastic, but on the other point it could be really elastic. Okay, so in question you should be very careful about it. Like a demand curve, supply curve is also changing over time, so time matters in the value of supply elasticity. So you can just think about each equation and make sure you understand each sentences. If you don't understand, please let me know. So the last one is the real application. Now we are pretty much familiar with elasticity. So we can apply our knowledge on the text problem, because text is really simple format to analyze with your basic knowledge of this supply and demand curves, and the result, a kinds of result or a kinds of lesson from studying the text is really simple but important. What is it? The text incidence problem. The text incidence problem is whatever you pay for tax, if you are consumer or if you are producer, it does not matter. Our knowledge tells us that what matters are your sensitivity to the change of price effect. So the elasticity of demand and supply curve can determine the incidence of tax, which means that how much burden is going to consumer, how much burden of that tax to a supplier can be totally determined by the elasticities of demand and the supply. You already know that? If you already know that, you should be really smart guy. So we're gonna study about the two things, two types of tax. One is the specific tax. Specific tax is kinds of general form of tax, and the other types of tax is the ad valorem tax. So in Korean, specific tax is called 종량세, and the ad valorem tax is called the 종가세. Let's go to the definitions of those two things. The ad valorem tax, or the 종가세, is if you spend $1, or if you spend 1,000원, or if you spend 10,000엔 or something, then a fraction of your spending will be collected by tax. Easy, right? The specific tax is that if you buy 1 unit, then specific amount of dollar can be collected by your spending, from your spending. Okay, so specific tax is tax per unit of output. Ad valorem tax is a specific tax per your spending, per dollar term. Okay, now are you clear about the difference between those two things? So in this graph, this is a situation where a tax, specifically it is a specific tax, because now you buy something, then a tax will be collected on the base unit you buy or you sell in the equilibrium. So now it is a specific tax. Okay, so our initial point is E1, our initial equilibrium point. In equilibrium point, the equilibrium price is $7.20 and equilibrium quantity is 12 units. But there is a tax on the supply curve. The result is you already know. Tax on supply curve does not matter. It is not important. Anyway, the tax is on the supply curve, so tax will be decreases. Because you have a tax if you're a supplier, then you have definitely decreased the amount of your supply, because taxing on your production means that it is increase in your cost, right? So your cost is increases, so your supply curve will be moved to S1 to S2. So your supply curve will be decreased or shift to the left hand side. So our equilibrium point is moving from E1 to E2. So reasonably equilibrium price level is increases and equilibrium quantity will be decreases from E1 to E2. So this is a very important point. What is the price level that suppliers will receive, and what is the price level that the consumer will pay for? That is important, right? At the equilibrium level of E2, there are two types of price level. First one is the P2. It is $8. Okay, so demand or a consumer will pay $8, but after receiving $8, how about the supplier or producer? They have to pay for a tax, and the tax is $2.40. So after paying for that amount of tax, the real money a producer will receive is $8 negative 2.40 cents. So it is $5.06 is the price that a producer will receive, right? So there is difference between a price level consumer pays for and the price level that the producer will receive. How about the tax revenue? Tax revenue means that the amount of tax per unit times a unit in equilibrium. So units in equilibrium is the Q2, 11.6, and the tax per unit is $2.40. So $2.40 times 11.6 units will be $27.84 billion is tax revenue. Okay? You understand that? How about the demand part? So now this is your practice part. You will easily find that the effect of tax on the demand side will be identical to the situation where we already saw in the previous page. The effect of tax on the supply curve. So our first lesson is the effect of tax on the supply or demand are identical to each other, so it doesn't matter. And the second, there will be a tax revenue happen to the government, so this is government revenue. So far so good. But the more important thing is that now elasticity part. Okay, so the elasticity of supply and demand curve can determine how much burden is going to supply side or demand side. The same tax level now here, 2.40 cents. So this is the equation where the economists defined and found out that you can just easily use the equation 19 to calculate the tax incidence, right? So tax incidence on a consumer side depends on the elasticity of supply and demand. So how about the epsilon? Epsilon is price elasticity of demand, and eta was the definition of price elasticity of supply. There is a kind of proof. If you are interested in how we derive equation 19, then I can show you in the next class. But you don't have to follow up the proof page, so you can just be given this type of expression to calculate things. And we know the price elasticity of demand epsilon and the price elasticity of eta from our previous examples, so you can put those two numbers, and we know the tax incidence delta t here. Then we can find out the delta p, which is the only unknown variable. So the answer is 0.80. So which means that the tax is $2.40, but only 80 cents out of $2.40 will be a burden for a customer, a burden for a consumer. Okay, the remaining part will be a burden for supply side. So the tax incidence on this market, tax incidence falling on the consumers in this market is just only 1/3. Okay, so the 2/3 of the tax incidence will be falling to the producer side. So producers will have to twice burden of the tax. Why? The why is really important. It depends on the elasticity. Okay, so this problem is the extreme case of the example that the supply curve is perfectly elastic, which means that your supply curve is really sensitive to the price changes or to the tax changes. And the demand is the normal, which means it is linear and downward sloping like a normal demand curve. So there is $1 of specific tax collected from the producers, and we know it does not matter at all. Then what is the tax incidence? Let's see the graph, right? So if supply curve is the perfectly elastic, which means that it is now horizontal. So our first and initial equilibrium point is E1. But after tax, after $1 increase in tax, now you go to the E2, right? So E2 is another price level, P2. And the P2 is just our original price level, P1, plus $1 of tax. And in this case, the consumer will have to pay for P2, right? The original price plus $1 of tax. But a producer will receive the P2 and pay for $1 bill, which is the same, right? So now in this case, the tax burden will be 100% falling to the consumer side because the supply curve is super elastic. So they react really sensitively to the tax changes. So they have no burden or no damage from the tax. All the burden will go to the consumer side. So our result shows that if you have more inelastic supply and demand curve, then you're gonna get the more burden of tax. So this is another examples. Okay, so this is the comparisons of ad valorem tax and the specific tax. In specific tax, there is no change in the slope of demand and supply curve. But if you remember the definition of ad valorem tax is tax from the money you spend. Each dollar of your spending money, then the ad valorem tax will collect a part or a fraction of the dollar you're spending. So it will change the graph of your demand and supply curves. Okay, so the graph seems a little bit complicated, but it's easy. So this is a tax on the demand side. So our original demand curve is D1, and DS is the after demand curve. So this is demand curve after specific tax, and the DA is a demand curve after ad valorem tax. Okay, so if you're a government agent, then you can just choose just one of them, ad valorem or specific tax. That is your choice. But you should be very careful to make the same economic result. Okay, same economic result means that the same tax revenue. There are different ways to make it happen by using just one of two taxes. Okay. So this is our last example. So supply curve is now perfectly inelastic, which means that your supply curve will be a vertical line and the demand curve is the normal. So what is the effect of ad valorem tax on the equivalent price? Let's see that. So supply curve is the same, but the demand curve will be changed from D1 to D2. So the slope is going down, right? So the price level will be changed from the P star to the 1 negative alpha times P star. So alpha is now the amount of ad valorem tax. Okay. So in this case, supply is super inelastic, right? So a demand or consumer side, now they are shrinking their demand because they have the more burden on tax. But since they shrinking their demand curve, the burden of ad valorem tax on the demand side, the 100% of that burden is going to fall to the supply side because supply curve is the super inelastic, right? So all the burden is going to supply curve and the demand side. They change their demand curve, but as your economic result, they don't have any effect from the ad valorem tax on the demand side, right? That's it. It is 35 minutes of video. So I'm done with this chapter. And next chapter, we're going to do kinds of new chapter, which is the real starting point of the microeconomic theory, the consumer choice theory. So let's begin the next chapter with the new video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and please keep yourself safe from the Corona-19 virus. Okay? See you guys.